Hey everybody, it's Chris Sims here from ComicsAlliance.com, and this is Here's the Thing. And today, we're going to talk about Pokemon. That's right, Bulbasaur. You'll teach me, and I'll teach you. Specifically, I'll be teaching you about fan theories about Pokemon, because that's one of my favorite aspects of the entire franchise. Which is weird, because I usually don't like it when people have ideas about things that aren't mine. But that's nothing new. Nowadays, you can't really swing an extra hour in the ball pit without hitting someone who has a fan theory or a headcanon or something. But that's been going on for a long, long time. In fact, the reason we use the word canon to describe this sort of thing is Sherlock Holmes. That's right, people were like in the 1890s writing fan fiction about Sherlock Holmes. Probably where he and Watson get it on. I don't know, I haven't read it. But that's why we use the term. The Arthur Conan Doyle stuff was called the canon, and everything else was non-canonical. It's a religious term originally that goes back to, religious canon. But for our purposes, it kind of starts with Sherlock Holmes. And it just goes from there. And I've got them. You've got them, I'm sure. Like, there are things about how Gotham City works. There are things about how Batman works that exist only in my head. That are only slightly supported by the text. Like, I don't think there's any actual crime in Gotham City. I don't think there's any mugging or no gas stations are getting robbed. It's all just dudes in costumes stealing ancient Egyptian cat statues. And why do they still have the ancient Egyptian cat statues coming through Gotham? Just skip it. You're asking for trouble. There's like 18 people lined up to steal ancient Egyptian cat statues. But, that's just in my head. If you read Batman comics, that's clearly not the case. There's a lot of crime in Gotham City. Because if there's not, then we don't get any more Batman comics. We just have Batman wearing a weird outfit in his basement. And if I wanted to see that, I could do it. But Pokemon has more than most things. Pokemon has a lot of fan theories, and a lot of them are really entertaining, because they range from the stuff that doesn't make any sense at all to the stuff that actually makes things make a lot more sense. Like, there's the idea that Ash is himself a Pokemon, which is bonkers. That is bananas. Ash can talk, and yeah, I know Meowth can talk, so, but on the other hand, Ash is really dumb. Even for like a 10-year-old. If he was just some weird little man-shaped animal that learned to talk, it would kind of make sense. But that one's just weird. One that I actually like that makes a lot of sense is about Gengar and Clefairy. It's that Gengar is Clefairy's shadow. If you've seen them next to each other, you know that they're kind of shaped the same, but a lot of stuff that is kind of round and soft and friendly about Clefairy is jagged and sharp and mean about Gengar. They have similar faces, but Gengar's is much more cruel and sharp. And there's the idea that Clefairy was originally supposed to have a much more prominent role in Pokemon, in terms of the lore, if you want to call it that, before they took a poll of Japanese kids and they decided that they preferred Pikachu to literally everything else in history. That's why the games became all about Pikachu. That's why the media became all about Pikachu. Because Pikachu's pretty great. And Bulbasaur great. He's pretty great. But yeah, there's that idea that Gengar's the shadow Pokemon because of that. And that Gengar was literally going to be Clefairy's shadow. But they never got around to filling that stuff in. There's one that's really kind of interesting about those original games. There's the one where you kill one of your rival's Pokemon because you never see it again after one of the battles. There's the one about how that original game, that Pokemon Red and Blue, take place after a war, which is why you're a 10-year-old who's just allowed to wander around by yourself, and why the only adult men you meet are involved in organized crime or the elderly, because everybody else got killed. Lieutenant Surge, when you go to the gym, he mentions that a Pokemon saved his life in the war, which is almost canonical to making that happen. There's a lot of those, though. There's stuff about where the Pokemon come from. There's is Ditto a failed clone of Mew? There's all kinds of these Pokemon fan theories out there. More than I think for anything else. So why is that? Well, I think part of it is because there's so much Pokemon. It's a huge, huge franchise. It was the most popular thing in the world for a long time. I sort of mark history by what was the most popular thing in the world. 1989, it was Batman. 1990, it was Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles took over. Then in 98, Pokemon came on the scene and just kind of wrecked everything in its path and became this massive worldwide global phenomenon. And part of that was that there was so much of it. There's books. I have a book called The Field Guide to Kanto that's all just fan-made stuff about Pokemon. But there's canonical books. There's the games, which are kind of the core of the franchise, right? Like, if you're going to figure out what matters most about Pokemon, it's the games. But there's also the anime, which is how they promote the games. There's movies. There's other books. There's different continuities of games. And all of them kind of build on these fan theories, or at least provide a place for those fan theories to build. And part of that is because it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of it, and none of it makes sense. Pokemon is designed to be visually engaging. They're designed to be cute and fun and look cool, but that means that they take a lot of liberties with logic. There is a look at this guy. This is a dinosaur with a flower growing out of its back. This is Pokemon number 1. They just get weirder from here. This thing gets weirder. It turns into a bigger dinosaur with an actual tree growing out of its back. And that's relatively calm. There's one that's a candle that grows up to be a lamp, that then grows up to be a chandelier. Now, I'm not sure that's how evolution works, so I don't want to speak to that, but I don't think it is. There's also a Pokemon that looks like an ice cream cone, which gives me the idea that people are just accidentally eating Pokemon all the time. And even if you were trying not to eat Pokemon, there's Pokemon that look like radishes. There's Pokemon that look like trees. How do you know? If you're a vegetarian, how do you know you're not eating something with thoughts and emotions? You don't. You're just eating things. Doesn't matter. Probably Pokemon shaped like a candy bar coming out in the next game. I don't know. So all these things are designed not necessarily to hold together logically. They're designed to be visually engaging and to have fun in a game, which means that they've got these really complicated stats. They've got different types. There's attributes on these things that you never see, that go on behind the scenes in the game that you don't really have access to, even if you're checking out the information about them in the game, because all that's designed to create unique and interesting things for the players. So none of it makes sense, which means that you have to fill in the gaps. Now, that could explain why there's a bunch of fan theories, but why are there so many with Pokemon? Because the third factor, there's a lot of it, none of it makes sense, and it encourages you to obsess over it. Pokemon is all about catching them all, right? It says so right in the logo. It says, gotta catch them all. And you are impelled to catch them all. A friendly old man tells you at the beginning of the game, hey, fill this up. Go get all of them. Then you'll be done. You're not done until you get all of them. You have to make friends to get all of them, too. You have to make real-life friends. You can't get them all in one game. Yet they're split between the different colors. So you have to go get friends and trade them and make deals. And then you tick off a little box. And then maybe this one doesn't have the nature you want, so maybe you have to go catch another one. Maybe you need to train them up so that you can tackle a particular gym, because you have a type disadvantage going in. All of that means that you have to keep a lot of information in your head. You have to keep track of which ones you have, what level they're at, what moves they have. It means you're keeping track of a lot of information. And if you're the type of person who's keeping track of all that information, then you're going to want to keep track of some other information that the games don't provide. The games don't tell you where these things come from. They don't tell you why Ditto can transform. They don't tell you who made all these Pokemon to begin with, why they happened. They don't tell you where all the adult men who aren't involved in organized crime are. They don't tell you why people are so mad at you all the time. It's because you killed their Pokemon. They provide you with just enough information to make things really intriguing. There's a Pokemon graveyard, but you never see a Pokemon die. They just faint, and you go to the Pokemon Center and get them refreshed. But they do die. So if they can die, then your stuff can die. The people you're fighting against, their stuff can die. So that means maybe you did kill your rival's Pokemon. You know, Lieutenant Surge, he talks about the war. So maybe there was a war. Maybe there was a war where everybody got killed and drafted. Maybe that's where your dad is. Maybe that's where Red's dad is. He got killed in the war. That's depressing. But there's just enough there to make you want to think about it. There's just enough there to make you want to complete the rest of the puzzle. Which is actually really fun if you look at them as just fiction. There's not a lot of fiction that does that. There's, you know, stuff that has purposeful ambiguity to it. Like, there's ambiguous endings in fiction all the time. But in terms of a video game that's designed to be played by tiny little babies, because look, guys, I love Pokemon. I'm way too old to have this. I'm 32. I know. I'm beautiful. You wouldn't think it. But I'm 32. I have Bulbasaur. I have Snorlax and Squirtle back there, too. So yeah, it's a game for little babies. But it also has so much ambiguity that you're forced to complete it for yourself. Which is one of the things I find really interesting about it. And maybe it's one of the things you find really interesting about it, too. If you have a favorite fan theory from Pokemon, I actually do want to hear it. I love that stuff. So leave a comment at comicsalliance.com or hit me up on Twitter at the ISB, and we'll talk about them. This has been another episode of Here's the Thing. My name's Chris Sims. I'll see you next week.